So what do buyers of professional services say is important? We're often asked this question. So we gave buyers of professional services, that's buyers of legal and accounting services, a list of 45 attributes and asked them to say which of those are significant when they're buying professional services. And the results were quite fascinating. I just want to share a few of them with you. First of all, we reduced the list of 45 in these results to a list of 14. And when we show partners these and say, what do you think the top 3 important criteria are, they'll go away and they'll make their list and we'll have a bit of a discussion. They're always surprised when I say, well, all 14 are in the top 3. So how can this be? Well, the interesting thing is the buying process is just not one single event. It's a series of events. And those 14 attributes are important at different stages during that process. So what does the buying process look like generally? Well, typically it involves 5 stages. The first is which company or which firm should I be talking to who could potentially solve this problem? Having talked to a few, a buyer will typically then say, well, out of those people I have engaged with conversation, which ones do I think it is worth them giving me a written proposal so that I can judge and assess whether they might be able to solve my particular issue? So that's the second step. The third step then is that they receive the written proposals, and from those written proposals they will decide which of their firms are most likely to meet their criteria and just select those firms to come forward to do a pitch. So that's the third. And the fourth phase is during the pitch process itself. Which of the firms that we have seen are most likely to be the ones that we would like to work with? And the final fifth decision is often taken a few days after the pitches have finished, and that's the decision as to which firm will we actually decide to go with. So let me give you an example of how this pans out. So let's take one of the factors, recommendation from my personal network. This factor starts off as being the most significant factor, or rather the factor that is mentioned the most times by buyers of professional services firms in the very first stage. So which firms will I engage in a conversation with because I think they may be able to solve my particular issue? It's over 90%, but as we can see from the graph I'll show you, what happens is that that factor ceases to be important through the rest of the phases, and it drops down significantly right through to the very end. There's a little kick up at the end, which may be to do with if I've got 2 firms which are very similar, which one should I go for? The one that's been personally recommended to me may be the deciding factor. In contrast, let's look at this line here. This is understanding our business objectives. Now, clearly at the beginning, a firm, why would you believe a firm would understand your objectives? It may be because of sector expertise or because of some of the people you have met or some of the speaking platforms you've seen them on. So about 20% of respondents said this was an important criteria at that first stage. But look over those 5 stages, how much it progresses. And by the end, it's one of the most significant factors, over 90%. So understanding my business, my objectives, comes out as really important, whereas recommendation from my personal network, absolutely critical at the beginning, but then fades significantly. So why is this important to a fee earner? Well, if you're trying to sell services to clients and help them in their buying decisions, you have to understand the buying process, what the steps are, and therefore how their criteria may change throughout the process, and therefore how you might be able to adapt your style and where you ought to focus your efforts through each stage. Now, clearly these results are just results from a survey. For each client, you have to work out what's important for each stage, and you do that by inquiry, by asking them perhaps directly as well as observing and talking to others. But just be aware, during the sales process, the factors that are important change. Some are important at the beginning, some increase in importance but then wane, and others just come through and are significant by the end of the buying process.